Hi everyone. Okay, I'm not going to be at class on Monday. I guess it was September the 11th because it's been a doozy of a weekend. My mom is sick and she's had a hospital visit and it's just been crazy. Okay, so thoughts and prayers are appreciated, but I will not be there, and I would much rather be there than doing what I'm doing. So I appreciate you understanding. And when y'all get to know me, I always work with my students, so I appreciate you working with me. Okay, I'm not a cinematographer. The lighting's not great, not a model, but here it is. It's about you getting this information, not about me. Here's what we were going to talk about tomorrow in class. Music of the medieval period. All right, so medieval is the longest and it is the first period of music history. Okay, as long as people have had a creative soul or spirit, they have been able to create art and to create music, but generally there was an oral tradition. Music was written down from passed down from person to person, much like how we teach children, very young children, before they can read and write, how to learn their ABCs or the months of the year or the colors in song. But you rarely see those written down. But in the medieval period of music in these early ages was very much entwined with the Catholic Church. Okay, at that point, if somebody was in the Christian way of believing, they were considered to be Catholic with a little c, lowercase, and that means universal church. After the Protestant Reformation, then we came up with different denominations like Episcopalian or Lutheran was the first because of Martin Luther helped start that Protestant Reformation. But look at your notes on Quizlet and you'll see a few familiar things. All right. Early music that was written down was written by monks that lived in monasteries all over Europe. All right. So if you were a man who gave yourself to the life of the church, the Catholic Church, you could be a priest, like a village pastor kind of priest, or you could be a monk who lived in a monastery, very often cloistered away, doing God's work. Before the printing press, they hand copied the Bible. All right? If you were a woman who wanted to give your life to the church, you were called a nun. And you still can be called a nun, but they very often lived in convents. And there wasn't school, like a school every mile or two, elementary, middle, or high school. So education was not mandatory. The people who were educated were these monks who knew how to read and write and copy the Bible. And many times, a lot of them, by the end of their careers, they were blind because they were doing this, of course, without the benefit of lighting we have today, like, electric lighting. They were doing this by candles. But what I really want you to know about is that this first written music was religious music. Pope Gregory, who was not a musician at all, but he was the Pope, the head of the church, the big guy in charge of everything, he said, hey, y'all need to write this down that you're singing in the monasteries. Write that down so every different little village monastery so they can all sing the same thing. So an Italian named Guido d'Arezzo, he came up with something called the Guidonian hand. That's why my hand is out here. Pope Gregory, not a musician again, said, write this down, come up with a system of music. Guido d'Arezzo, an Italian monk, priest, I think he did a little of both of it, came up with the system that looks totally different from today's music writing called the Guidonian hand. But we had to start somewhere, right? Looks totally different than what you see, but it seems totally different than what we're doing now. But if we didn't have these first steps, we wouldn't have today's music. So that's where we started. But early church music was generally sang by all men. It was monophonic, one line, no harmony, Sort of like maybe when we sing happy birthday, and everybody's singing the same note at the same time, no harmony, or we're singing the national anthem for our country, or, the ABC song, something that we all know and is simple. No extra notes, no harmony. That's monophonic. One line, everybody singing the same thing at the same time in unison. So that's how it started. And there was not a lot of musical accompaniment in that medieval period. The next period after that is the Renaissance. And in the late medieval, early Renaissance, they started allowing the little tinkling of bells, things like that, because they didn't want to distract from the worship of God. So it was just a choir singing, very simple, very otherworldly. And then as they went along, they started saying, hey, we can add a little bit of this. And it still won't sound like what the non-Christians are singing. But anyway, I just want to explain to you that's not the beginning of music. We don't know when that was, probably when the first human was, because everybody likes to learn to express themselves. But the beginning of written music was entwined with the history of the Catholic Church, brought up again by Pope Gregory, not a musician, but asked for the monks to write the music down. Therefore, it was called Gregorian chant or plain chant, because boy, was it plain. And it was so that it would point to God and not to the musicians. So study your notes. I'll see you Wednesday in Spruce Hall. I'm going to send every medieval lecture that I've got, so maybe you can understand it. We'll review it on Wednesday. But please come on Wednesday. And this is an emergency. Obviously, I didn't know this was happening, but listen to this lecture. If you've made it this far, you deserve 10 points. Write me and tell me, and I'm going to write it down. Please tell everybody you know to do this, because everybody doesn't read their email. So if you read this and watch this, please spread it. I'm going to email everybody, and there'll be a note on the door, but I appreciate your help so much. So take care. I'll see you Wednesday. Thank you so much for understanding, and I appreciate all your thoughts and prayers for my mom at this time.